As a personal trainer, you'll need to understand blood sugar and how it's regulated. You're bound to encounter clients with blood sugar issues, like diabetes, and glucose, aka sugar, is a major energy source for the muscles during activity and exercise in healthy humans. So let's talk blood sugar and how it's regulated. Blood sugar is heavily regulated by hormones, more specifically, insulin and glucagon. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas. It helps to regulate the amount of glucose in the bloodstream. When blood glucose is elevated, like after a meal, this triggers the release of insulin by the pancreas. Insulin attaches to insulin receptors on target cells like the liver, skeletal muscles, and adipose tissue. This binding opens glucose channels on these target cells and allows glucose to enter. Thus, the level of glucose left in the blood goes down. If blood glucose levels are too low, that's where glucagon comes into play. Glucagon is a hormone released by the pancreas as well. It can be triggered by low blood glucose levels, high protein meal consumption, or the hormone adrenaline, which also helps to combat low blood glucose. The role of glucagon is to raise blood sugar levels. It does so by promoting the breakdown of stored liver glycogen, glucose that's stored in the liver, into free glucose that is released into the bloodstream. Together, insulin and glucagon work to keep blood glucose levels in an ideal range in a healthy human. That's anything less than 140 milligrams per deciliter on average. When the body is unable to regulate blood sugar, several conditions can develop. Insulin resistance is when the target cells of the liver, muscles, and adipose tissue don't respond to insulin and, therefore, can't effectively clear glucose out of the blood. Type 2 diabetes occurs when the body can't effectively regulate blood sugar and there is too much glucose circulating throughout the body. These excessively high levels can lead to other health conditions that can affect the circulatory, nervous, and immune systems. Be sure that you understand the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes as well. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune reaction. The body attacks cells in the pancreas that produce insulin, so the body can't make enough of it. Most people with type 1 diabetes are born with this condition, but it can have environmental causes as well. Type 1 diabetes is far less common, but it affects between 5 and 10% of Americans. Want to know the good news? While exercise and physical activity can't cure blood sugar disorders, it can help. Research has found that exercise is capable of promoting weight loss and thus improving insulin resistance and blood glucose control for people with type 2 diabetes.
Did you know that exercise can improve your immune system and hormonal stress responses? This is going to be an important fact to share with clients with weaker immune systems or those with chronic disease. We're specifically addressing aerobic exercise here. Moderate to vigorous exercise bouts of less than 60 minutes. This activity increases the rate of blood and lymph circulation as the heart rate and respiration rate go up. At the same time, anti-inflammatory cells and the B and T cells of the immune system are circulated more. This in turn means the immune cells are able to catch and eradicate potentially harmful virus and bacteria faster. The result? A reduced chance of getting sick and a decrease in systematic inflammation. Understand that longer or higher intensity bouts of aerobic exercise will not enhance this effect. In fact, stress hormones like cortisol can cause inflammation and suppress immune function. Cortisol is at its highest early in the morning and during high intensity and endurance exercise. There are many studies that observe elite athletes compared to recreational athletes. Elite athletes with long, high-intensity training schedules have been found to have decreased immune function and higher incidence of illness, despite usually being in better physical condition. There are similar findings regarding upper respiratory infections and those who consistently worked at higher intensities with heavy exertion compared to moderate workloads. This is a direct result of the body's stress responses, both physical and hormonal. Speaking of cortisol, this hormone has a big role in your recovery when you're ill. It is lowest at night, which is why you can still fall and stay asleep when you have a bad cold or the flu. Your body is hard at work fighting off your infection with minimal hormonal inhibition. But as cortisol increases by the waking hours, we often feel sicker in the morning than we do the rest of the day. Symptoms like fever, chills, congestion, or headache may be felt more prominently when you first get up and cortisol levels are elevated. As far as the metabolism, proper pre-workout nutrition can help lessen the body's stress responses too. Research has shown that taking in glucose and fructose before prolonged endurance exercise is linked with reduced post-exercise stress hormones, specifically cortisol and epinephrine, and reduced inflammation. For example, carbs. Beverages with up to 12% carbs like fruit juice, and whole fruits like bananas or pears. A delicate balance has to be found, though. Too many carbs before a workout will also reduce fatty acid metabolism and reduce fat-burning effects. The excess glucose that accumulates in the bloodstream is a much faster source of energy that the body will utilize first. Physical exercise is more than just how we move. Be mindful of how the activity you put a client through truly impacts their body today and during recovery.
To truly understand human movement, it's essential to understand the role of the nervous system. Muscles are attached to bones. When muscles contract, they cause the bones to move. This creates motion. However, the nervous system is what signals muscle contraction in the first place. The central nervous system, or CNS, consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, includes all nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord. The CNS is protected by the bones of the spine and skull, while the PNS is not. The exposure of the PNS allows us to sense and feel things, like when you hit your funny bone or touch something hot. When we exercise, we're not just training our muscles. The CNS gets a workout too. Electrical signals generate a response at the neurochemical junction of a motor unit. This is where the electrical signal is converted to a chemical signal that stimulates muscle contraction. The more you train a movement pattern, the faster and stronger that signal conversion occurs. This is often called motor learning. Muscles are also trained in the process. They begin to utilize energy more efficiently, contract stronger with higher fiber recruitment, and fatigue slower. Some experts believe any muscle contraction can lead to non-local muscle fatigue. This means if you do 4 sets of a bicep curl, then hop onto a treadmill for a sprint, your legs may already be slightly fatigued even though they didn't take part in the earlier exercise. This accumulation of fatigue is thought to be neural, biochemical, and psychological. There's still a lot to learn about how humans are wired, but the basics we do know are the foundation of exercise and movement. We know the muscular, skeletal, and nervous systems work together to create human movement, but the other 8 organ systems also unite their functions to keep you alive and functioning. Although each organ system has its own specific functions, all organ systems are deeply intertwined with one another. When one system fails, issues are likely to happen in other organ systems. All health and fitness professionals should have a sound understanding of what ideal health and wellness looks like. The respiratory and circulatory system are often confused as being the same thing. However, they are 2 completely different systems that each contribute to the intake and delivery of oxygen and the removal of waste from the body. The fight or flight response is initiated by the nervous system, but is a coordination of the endocrine system too. The glands that secrete the necessary hormones and catecholamines are vital to this fast, intense response. Digestion of the food you eat is a coordination of the digestive, nervous, muscular, and cardiovascular systems. The neurological response to food entering your body stimulates the cardiovascular system to increase blood flow to the digestive organs. And the rhythmic contraction that moves food material through the digestive tract is controlled by the muscular and nervous system. Even the urinary system cannot perform independently. It functions to clear the waste from the blood that is produced by many of the other organ systems from the body. Achieving the perfect balance with all systems is the ideal situation. Not everyone will get there, but we should all strive for it in the pursuit of optimal body function, longevity, and a pain-free lifestyle. When the body doesn't have enough glucose for energy, it turns to an alternate fuel source, stored fat. When glucose levels are low, fats are broken down in the liver, and the resulting chemical is called a ketone. Ketones are fatty acids, or the building blocks of fats, and are released into the bloodstream to be used as fuel for the cells, brain, and muscles. Chemically, the breakdown of a single ketone in the mitochondria of the cell yields 2 guanosine triphosphate, or GTP molecules, and 22 ATP molecules for energy. We know that ATP is a primary cellular energy substrate, and GTP is a molecule that also transfers energy in the cells. and is a substrate in the citric acid cycle during aerobic metabolism. The body naturally makes ketones as an energy source during extended fasting, while we sleep, when glucose levels fall, and when someone's diet is low in carbohydrates. So, in healthy adults, producing ketones is normal and not detrimental. Individuals with uncontrolled type 1 diabetes often make ketones for energy because they naturally have low insulin production, which prevents glucose from being taken up by the cells for energy production. In these individuals, prolonged high ketones can cause adverse health effects. High ketones can cause dehydration and change the pH of the blood, making it more acidic. This condition is known as diabetic ketoacidosis, and it can cause nausea, weakness, abdominal pain, and in extreme circumstances, coma or death.